All right, what it is. Good people, Running with War Show, a second edition for this playoff week, giving it to you with overtime coverage. Because, of course, it's that time of year. The big men are bringing it to another level on the NBA. So we got to do the same here with War Media. You see me, Kyle Means here. Gabriel Wilkins alongside me, starting off again with the two-man coverage. But we're going to have some more people coming on later on the show. Josh Buckhalter, a writer, going to be making his debut with us, his first run. And also Drew, our man Drew Stevens, should be returning to the show. It's indeed playoff time, about midway through. Yeah, we doing it live with the a set of games going on right now. About one game just tipping off, Utah and Dallas. Minnesota jumped out to a pretty nice lead against Memphis in that game 3 that's going on in the second. I think it's reached the second half now. Minnesota is still up, in the third quarter, midway through, and of course, Phoenix will be playing later. Oh, excuse me, the Warriors will be playing later with the Nuggets. Nuggets bringing that series back home to Denver, but they're in desperate need of some sort of a pick me up from those first two games. They got wore out in those first two games in San Francisco. But Gabe, man, as I bring you in, man, we was starting to get off a little conversation just before we went live talking about the injuries. We're going to talk a bit about that over the show. A lot of injuries, a lot of potential affecting players being out, affecting series and stuff. But probably the biggest one so far has been Luka Doncic and his not playing for Dallas in their series against Utah. But, Dallas has risen to the occasion for the most part, splitting their first two games at home in Dallas against the Jazz. The series back, taking it to Salt Lake City tonight. But it's still not a certain thing about, it's not a thing where Dallas necessarily feels like they have to rush Luka back. Gabe, explain that. Explain that side of things.
Well, I mean, it's still early in the series, and the fact that they avoided going down 0-2 on Monday night was big. Jalen Brunson stepping up with 41 points, and Maxi Kleber, coming off the bench and some big time threes. It kind of gave them some buying time, in my opinion, with Luka. And going into game 3, of course, he's not playing tonight. Their game is set to tip off shortly. He's not going to be out there tonight. But what we were talking about, like if the Mavs are able to, get off to a good start in front of a raucous and rowdy crowd in Salt Lake City, as we know it'll be, and put themselves in a chance, in a position rather to go up 2-1, then they really playing with house money at this point. If they want it, they could really take more precaution with Luka and take a little bit more time, when it comes to getting him ramped up in regards to when and which point they want to bring him back. I think if they go down tonight, game 4 is going to put a lot of pressure on Luka and that medical staff and the training staff over there to have him right come Saturday afternoon to take the floor in Salt Lake City down 2-1, because you don't want to go back to the crib down 3-1, playing for your playoff life in game 5. So I think if they take care of business tonight in a game that I think will be close as the first two were, then it could get very, very interesting. And they could kind of, Jason Kidd and those guys and his coaching staff, and the medical staff, they can really, have a little bit of leeway in regards to how they want to play that situation with Luka.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting, man. You mentioned how the series looks like it's destined to play out pretty close each game and play out over most of the available games, if not all the available games. But it seems like most of the series that we've had have been like that so far. Even a couple that have gone 2-0, and you look at pressure. You talk about the exertion of pressure of returning a person uh, in Dallas, a star that they need, but may not need as much as they expected going into the series. It's a different level of pressure being exerted there. But you could look at a series like Boston and Brooklyn and see where there's an increasing level of pressure being put on now by Boston onto Brooklyn, and they seem to be really in need of some reserves, and namely being the returning Ben Simmons, making actually making his debut for the Nets. We still haven't seen him play as a Net since that big trade a couple months ago, and but the reports will come out that there's a possibility that could happen not in Game 3, which is the next game, but Game 4 in Brooklyn, which could be an elimination game. It could be the last game of the year for Brooklyn. But like I said, the situation is sort of the opposite as it is right now with Dallas, where we talk about they could think over some things. They're playing in competitively against Utah, but things have been sliding for Brooklyn they lost by 1 in Game 1, but they played a much weaker game yesterday in Game 2, and from Durant's bad shooting to Kyrie, needing a banana to break the fast, and then he wasn't really putting in any work. That as he did on Sunday in Game 1, he just was a shadow of himself in that game. They really didn't put it together in any way as a team. That defense of Boston was hounding them all night. What do you think about that situation? Whether compared, on its own or compared to Dallas.
Two totally different situations, Cal. With Dallas, and of course the situation with Dallas can change too. By the end of the night, they might be like, well, hey, we gotta have Luka back and we need you now come Saturday. But with Brooklyn, you need Ben Simmons now. Down 2-0, and everybody, gives credit to the Celtics defense. I give them a lot of credit. They send in 2 and 3 bodies on Durant each and every time, whether he's on ball, off the ball. They very active. Guys got their hands up. They contesting shots. I can't even recall, and somebody brought this up on Twitter in a tweet I saw last night. They said, I never seen Durant ever get a shot block. And we done seen it twice in the first 2 games with Jason Tatum, using his size and length to contest Durant. And, usually when Durant is shooting over guys, it's like shooting over a chair for him, like they can't even get within his face because he's so tall and the way he's able to raise up, so quick with his beautiful release. But I think yesterday, even in spite of KD's and Kyrie's struggle, they had a shot to win that game, man. Like they was up double digits. Goran Dragic was playing some great basketball off the bench for them. Bruce Brown was contributing, on both ends of the floor for them. My problem with the Nets right now is that, like, Steve Nash hasn't made any adjustments. And in the playoffs, you gotta tinker and find ways to utilize certain guys. And when you got an Andre Drummond out there who is talented as he is and has been throughout his career, not rebounding, and that's what you brought him to Brooklyn to do, and he's not being a serviceable rim protector, and he's getting in and out of foul trouble, like you're only playing him and Claxton. Like I have questions as to why Blake Griffin isn't getting minutes in this series. Why isn't LaMarcus Aldridge getting minutes in this series when LaMarcus Aldridge during the regular season has some big time performances against Boston? And even though he's not the best defensive player, he gives you an added element on the offensive end. But Ben is sorely needed. They need Ben for his defense alone. And Ben could really take a lot of pressure off of Kyrie having to initiate the offense and so forth, and allowing Kyrie to do what he does best and playing off the ball. But I don't even think they looked at Kyrie's way enough last night in the fourth quarter. Everything was so geared towards Durant within Steve Nash's offense to the point where it was a lot of times Kyrie didn't get any touches. And that's a problem. And if I'm Kyrie, I'm going to Nash and I'm telling him over these next couple of days, look, man, I got to get some touches, especially late, down the stretch. I showed you what I could do in game one with my touches. You know why I'm here. Like at some point, he has to get touches, and they have to get Durant going off the ball. They're going to have to start getting a lot of screens and flares and setting up pin downs for him because it's too much pressure that Boston's defense is putting on these guys. And I think they have a lot of mismatches, the Celtics, that they've been exploiting on Brooklyn and doing a great job of, and that's made a big difference in this series thus far.
Yeah, it would seem, given the diagnosis of the offense that, what we often hear with Brooklyn is that they don't do much in the ways of sets, for the offense. They pretty much just go with the flow.
Yep.
Their shots, shot distribution isn't very consistent. Kyrie gets a lot of shots, but he may get more. He may get double the shots of Durant on a given night, or you may have a night like Game 2 where there's sort of an overcorrection and Durant gets more shots, even when he's not hitting. But they're trying so hard to get him into the game and to get him to do the things that they feel he normally does. Yeah. But he just didn't have it yesterday. So, for whatever reason, like you said, they didn't correct that by letting Kyrie get it off enough, or anybody else get any chances enough to sort of get them out of their second half funk. And Boston just kept used it to their advantage. But I'm with you, man. As far as Nash goes, I don't know if he's going to be the guy to really make the most of that unit as it is now, or reel in those stars the way that even though he is a star, and all that. I don't think the coaching experience or acumen isn't there for him to allow him to really let this team maximize this team and its talent in such heady situations as the playoffs. I just really think they're at a disadvantage on their bench right now with him at the head.
Absolutely. Udoka is out coaching him right now in every single way. And he's being exposed and his metal's being tested, and he has to find a way to respond to that, because if he doesn't, it's going to be a long off season in Brooklyn, and he's going to be facing a lot of uncertainty about his job. I don't think Steve Nash's job is safe at this point in time through 2 games in the playoffs. You're only playing a 9-man rotation right now, and you have a Ben Simmons set to return, but then this is the thing that's crazy too. You're playing Durant over 40 minutes each and every night. And at some point, you got to be able to spot him. And that's where Ben comes in for them. And he's going to be a key component, because maybe he'll allow him to get a little breather here and there. But I'm at the point with the Nets where I'm concerned about whether or not Durant will even be able to last up until game 5, even if, they were able to find a way to win the next 2 games in Brooklyn, because he's playing so many minutes. And I don't see that changing, especially with their backs up against the wall, going down 2-0. Like, that's why missed opportunities in the playoffs, like what you saw on Sunday when they had the game, in balance. And then last night losing a double-digit lead late, in the midst of a Celtics rally, that's tough. We're gonna really find out a lot of answers to questions that we have about Steve Nash and this group. And he's got to try something different in game 3. Like Blake Griffin, if I'm not mistaken, was like among the league leaders in charges taken per game. At least Blake gives you some defense. Yeah, he's undersized, but he gives you some girth. They don't even really have that right now. Defensively, is the Nets biggest, like that's my biggest concern with the Nets, and I think everybody's biggest concern who's been watching them
Yeah,
all season long.
definitely. Yeah, we gonna bring it out a little more with our playoff conversation and bring in a guest, like I said, a first time guest here on Running. Man contributes to a lot of websites, including Fansided, Atlanta Hawks website, and Heavy.com. He writes for the Bulls there. Great follow on Twitter and a podcaster and all sorts of good things. My man Josh Buckhalter, man, what's up with you, man? We appreciate you making time for us and adding to our playoff coverage.
First off, thank you for having me, man. I greatly appreciate even the invite and not much, just loving these games. This is an exciting playoffs already. We're only in the first round.
Yes, indeed, man. Yes, indeed. We were talking about specifically about the Brooklyn Boston series right now. But like I said, you cover, you pretty entrenched with Atlanta and the Hawks through the fan sided website Soaring Down South, and of course Atlanta is in the playoffs still. The other day, we had a nice little discussion about about the Hawks and about Trae Young and sort of some perceived disrespect towards Trae Young. Gabe and I got Josh went in on that, and I'd like to get your opinion on that. But the thing is, whether or not you're pro Trae or if you feel he's lived up to whatever potential or whatever or gone beyond it, Atlanta has had a bit of a bumpy ride still, even though they had the highs of last year going into the Eastern Conference Finals unexpectedly, but this year they sort of fell back a bit through a lot of the season. They fought to get into the playoffs through the play-in game, and really, I thought, I told you on Twitter, man, I thought they were really a dangerous team, going through this whole process at the moment. But seemed to come to a halt again against Miami. Miami seemed to really, solve them to a degree. What's your thoughts though on how things have gone? 2-0 advantage for Miami going into Game 3 tomorrow in Atlanta.
It's a daunting task to say the least. They are down, like you said, down 0-2, and craziest stat there's been 435 occurrences of a team going up 2-0. 7.1%, 31 times the team that's down 0-2 has actually come back to win. So they don't have very good odds of coming back in the series. That right there puts a fear into me. Secondly, it's what Miami has done to Trae that's been repeatable both games, right? The disrupting what he wants to do, and that's neutralized the Hawks largely. And that's the part that I think should be most concerning, even more than the 0-2 record, because if that blueprint is so simple and you're struggling to find ways around it, now obviously there's 2 more games at least, so they can still figure it out. But to this point, they've not been able to find a way to get him to get going. I've heard a few suggestions on how they could do that, but as of right now, nothing seemed to work. And Miami's just throwing body after body after body at him on switches. I was listening to the Pull-Up podcast, Duncan Robinson's podcast, and his co-host was talking about how, Trae is in prison right now because they run the pick and roll. Hawks are one of the top pick and roll teams, but Miami can switch everything. And so when you have that, there's not many mismatches for Trae to attack, and that's problematic.
Yeah. Where do you think the potential lies for Atlanta to get, because you get one game in this, you get series, you get that crowd down there in Atlanta going, they say they pull it out tomorrow, it looks a bit different. But if Miami beats them down again tomorrow, that's pretty much a wrap for them. I mean, what do you think the key is going to be tomorrow for Atlanta to, pretty much get a must win and keep their, regain some sort of momentum?
I think you kind of nailed it. They are a team that's been reliant on that home crowd this season. One of the top records at least in the Eastern Conference at home. They really stumble on the road, which is kind of maybe not expected, but what we saw against Miami was par for the course really this entire season. So going back home, I expect them to have a better effort. What really hurts them is not having Clint Capella healthy. That right there is a major factor because that's their defensive anchor. And with John Collins not 100%, that is Trae Young's pick and roll partner. And so without him on the floor, you lose size, you lose some strength, you lose rebounding, you lose defense. That's a lot for a team that was already living on a razor thin margin. And so I expect them to have a better effort at home. It's a daunting task, and I think the only way they're going to do it, they got to hit their shots. They're going to have to outshoot Miami in this series because they're not going to be able to slow them down. Miami plays bully ball. The Hawks are not built to stop bully ball. So, in the absence of that, you got to shoot them out the gym.
And you know what? You know, we were talking about injuries. Before you came on, we were talking about Luka Doncic. We talking how that affects, of course, that series, Dallas and Utah. The impending arrival, I guess, of Ben Simmons. I guess you can put that in the injury category, but him not being available and potentially being available, how that could affect the Brooklyn Boston series. Now with Collins, he's pretty much he's not going to be available, right?
No, Collins played. He started at center.
Yeah, the first two games of the series, he came back. He came back in game one.
In game one, and then started at center and for.
Okay, excuse me. Well, he's not 100%.
No, he's not 100%. He's reportedly, according to Chris Kirshner of The Athletic, is still having trouble gripping the ball. So his shooting's not even is where it's supposed to be. He's abandoned the splint that he's supposed to wear. But the original prognosis on his finger was that it needed rest to fully heal, and anything short of fully healing on that rest he's just not going to heal right. So he's going to be banged up as long as he's playing with it.
Okay. Do you think he's pressing a bit, or is he that critical to their success that he has to be out there?
They need his energy. They need the emotional emotional uplift that he brings them. Like I was talking about with Clint Capella, the role partner for Trae Young. They missed John Collins catching lives on people. I know it sounds kind of Bush League, but they miss him putting people on t-shirts. Like they need that kind of. The Hawks are an us against the world team, and so without somebody to kind of get that spirit up, you're left with Trae. And like we just talked about, when you can take Trae out of the game, they become neutralized. So they need him as much as it's probably hurting him to go through it all, like physically. They need him out there, and I think he knows that's why he's there. So
I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that 100%, Josh. Watching a lot of Atlanta games on League Pass. I'm familiar with the John the Baptist moniker and stuff and everything. He was definitely putting guys on posters. And I agree with you when you talk about Capella being a big loss for the Hawks. Like as you alluded to when you talk about how the Hawks are one of the top pick and roll teams and Trae being a pick and roll savant, having that lob threat that Clint is, and it's been, throughout his entire career dating back to Houston with James Harden when I was covering him, with the Rockets and whatnot. So I'm very familiar with Clinton. That's a huge loss. And a guy that I think would have been a stifling presence against Miami in the interior as a rim protector as well defensively. They losing him big time. And I think the loss of Capella is what propelled Collins to come back, because without him, what size do you have?
Yeah.
They didn't really have any choice but to bring John Collins back, in my opinion, and get whatever they can out of him.
They've tried to platoon the position somewhat. Onyeka comes in. He's still learning, though, and you see those lashes sometimes. He has the explosion, and you see all the flashes of what he can be. Then you're reminded, this is still a second-year player sometimes.
Yeah.
And then behind him, you have Gorgie Jang, who, listen, their broadcast team loves to call him the flamethrower, the bomber, right? Because he just comes in. When he comes in, it's usually cleanup time, and he's plucking threes. That clearly means you don't want him in starting for any more than garbage time. So they're really thin in terms of big bodies behind Clint Capella, and Collins is not ideal there, but that just lets you know, like you said, what the situation is that they have him starting at center, not less than 100%.
Yeah,
but we'll see how things go with Atlanta. Looking at that side of the bracket, we've hopping over the Eastern Conference series. We're gonna get into the Bulls, of course, and the Bucks. I'm trying to hold off for Drew to come on for that. But while we're on that side of the bracket with the 1-8 matchup, you also have the 4-5 who is expected to win. The winner of that will face the winner of the 1-8. that's looking like it's gonna be Philly right now. You know, they go up 3-0. You get the big shot from Embiid. You know, at the end, and you know he gets to talk to Drake while he walks off the court and everything. But you know, it's you know a lot of people, you know, that sort of poetic justice thing, making mention of that. You know, when he was up there a couple years ago, and Kyrie got him, you know, crying out. He was walking off the stage crying then, but today he was, you know, talking stuff. But yeah, it's a big moment for Philly. They are in position to win that series. You know, what do we think about the way that they started off the playoffs, and you know how much of a threat they could be, you know, for anybody in the East going forward? You know, if Embiid is going to keep his level of play up the way it is, and they could get some of the contribution that they can from guys like Maxey and whatnot, you know, got to feel that, you know, 76 is going to have a lot to say about what's happening in the East before it's said and done.
You totally do. Embiid has finally figured himself out, right? I think we all kind of wanted him to take it a little bit more serious, and not even just be more serious in terms of his personality, but just go out there and dominate like we clearly know that you can, and that's what we've seen him do. Toronto doesn't have anything that can match up with him. Like, they're not even close. Their best ability is their switch ability, and he's switch proof. Like, there's nothing you're not switching anybody on him that wasn't already on him to make it better. So I think that in the NBA, the old motto is the best player usually wins in the 7-game series. That's what we're seeing here, and it's not going to take 7 games. Toronto has had a good rebuilding effort after post Kawhi, but they're still missing that superstar player to take them over the top. Maybe they have the guy that just hasn't developed yet. I like Van Vliet. He's not a superstar, but I really like Van Vliet. Scotty Barnes has got a lot of potential as a rookie. Still a young guy, though. Pascal Siakam is good for what they don't have a Joel Embiid. And so that's the difference. And you're seeing that play out.
Hey, Gabe, you got any thoughts on this, on how that series is played out?
Oh, absolutely. I think Toronto put together a valiant effort, but as Josh alluded to, you know, when you don't have a guy that can stop Joel Embiid, and a guy who is one of the best in the business when it comes to attacking double teams, you know, he gets to his movements very quick. You know, he's very quick with his decision making, and he knows what he wants to do. I think Philly last night, you know, they had some struggles offensively, but they were able to work through it. I give credit to Tobias Harris as well, who has stepped up and passed some big time performances despite struggling initially following the Harden trade. He's found his stride and been a nice third option for the Sixers. And James Harden has really been locked in. And even though he hasn't put up the numbers that we've seen him put up in playoffs past, having a guy like Maxey has taken so much pressure off of him to where now all he needs to do is just get 6 to 8 points a quarter and just initiate the offense and making sure, you know, that he's keeping turnovers at a minimum and whatnot. But Joel Embiid is definitely showing the rest of the country why he's one of the top players in the game, and a guy that why so many people rather thought he was MVP during the regular season. That was a big time shot that he hit last night. And I said it to you, remember, Cal, a couple weeks ago in this series, even though I thought Toronto would be a tough matchup prior to injuries to Scotty Barnes and whatnot, if Joel Embiid came out and put up 30 and 10 each and every night, then Philly was going to be in good shape. He's done that through the first 3 games. And as you see, you know, they're on the verge of a sweep.
Yeah. And you know, it's tough because Toronto had, for a time, they were looking like they were going to be a little bit of a dangerous team. And, you know, the Bulls had, you know, did such a dive in the second half. People were like, you know, well, maybe we should play into that 3 seed, or what, you know, try to, you know, we try to avoid that 4 seed, you know, but it's looking like it's going to be the other way around now, you know, where the Bulls going to be giving, you know, Milwaukee a ride. And, you know, maybe it's a matchup thing because, you know, I don't know if they would have even played as well against Philly, you know, given the results that were there in the regular season, because Joel, he did his thing against the Bulls. He continues to do his thing against the Bulls. But, you know, of course, Milwaukee has their own monster, and the Bulls were able to, offset his what Giannis offered in both of the games, but especially in game two, you have the issue now of Middleton being out, for an extended period of time because of the MCL, maybe for the rest of this series, and just really. I heard it put pretty well. I forgot who said it, but earlier today is not so much what the Bulls are doing against the Bucks so much as what the Bulls are doing for themselves, which is things that we haven't seen them do in quite a while. On defense, especially effort wise, being able to get to the ball and overcome 50-50 opportunities and stuff like that, rebound better, all types of just seemingly effort things I think that we've really seen a lack of in the past couple months for the Bulls. They're starting to snap back into it again. And this will be a big game 3 coming up here on Friday, coming back to Chicago, playoff action here in Chicago for the first time in 5 years again. People are expecting a big crowd at the UC, energetic crowd. Could this be the time for the Bulls to take control of this series? And is it right there for them?
If it's absolutely not now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, the time to strike is now. It's your first playoff home game in 5 years, and you got a big win last night, and they did everything that we called them out on in part 1 of this playoffs Poppin series, Cal. Like they hit 3-point shots last night. They got them to fall. I think they shot 48% from 3. They kept the margins on the glass close. They were up for most of the game in the rebounding margin. They were -1, but they kept that close. And then most importantly, when they got turnovers, they pushed it out in transition. They got running. And that's what allowed them to get off to a 9-0 start, to set the tone last night. And led by Caruso and Levine and those guys, and DeRozan, was the star among stars, hitting tough mid-range jump shot after mid-range jumper. I really like the 2-man game that him and Vooch had going within the pick and roll and in the pick and pop in the fourth quarter, because what that allowed them to do was get Giannis outside of the paint and force Giannis to play DeMar straight up and move his feet and got him out in space and attack him. And it paid dividends for them. I thought they were the more aggressive team, but they have to remain even keel going into game 3, because when you got Giannis over there, who's the best player in the series, you can't take him lightly, even with a Chris Middleton that's down and more than likely won't be back in this series, as they're saying that it's going to be a 2-week recovery for him. And during the process. So, this is the time to strike. They have a golden opportunity. Milwaukee, I think since the first quarter of game 1, has really been relatively flat for the most part as a unit. Chris Middleton was starting to get it together last night in that third quarter, but once he went down, it was an opening. Now you got Portis, with his eye issue, saying that he was seeing double. You got a wounded team, even though they're defending world champion. This is the perfect opportunity for you, the Bulls. You one of the best home teams in the league, too. You got to strike right now.
You mentioned 9-0 runs. There was another 9-0 run at the beginning of the fourth quarter.
Right.
That was probably even as more important than that first quarter run, because that was coming off of pretty much in response to Milwaukee tightening the lead towards the end of the third, and that that was a time where I think a lot of Bulls fans was like, oh man, here we go. But the Bulls really showed themselves to respond well to Milwaukee's impending runs in the second half of the game. And they made the shots, so many shots that they didn't make in game 1, they made in game 2, starting with DeMar, starting with Vooch. And it was a great moment for that team, and we'll see how they can carry on with it if they can keep up with the momentum at home. Josh, I said you right on the Bulls too for heavy. So you've been keeping up with the team. You're based in Chicago, so you follow the Bulls all the time as well. What do you think about we haven't had you on this year. What do you think about the how this team has progressed throughout the year, its ups and its downs, and what do you think the experience that they've had as a team throughout this season? What do you think it says for their possibilities in this series?
I think this season has been great for the Bulls. I think the way that it unfolded might have been a little bit unfortunate, but I think Billy Donovan's been telling you the entire time that the trials and tribulations that they went through in the second half, he was hoping that they went through earlier so that they would be hardened by the time they got to this point. That's the truest thing ever, because it came so fast and so easily for them in the beginning, right? They just got in, they gelled, and everything was clicking, and the offense was firing, the defense was ferocious, and everybody was like, oh, this is the best team in the league, and they were the top seed. And then things got tough. And there were signs like it's crazy how consistent he's been with that message the entire season. So now we get to the postseason, and our biggest concern with him wasn't necessarily talent as much as it was them shooting themselves in the foot. And like you said, they've helped themselves out more than they've necessarily done anything different to Milwaukee. That focus, that level of intensity that they've had was not there for the bulk of the second half of the season. It just wasn't. And what do you want to call it? Flipping a switch. They want to prove people, whatever the case may be, they have turned it on, and they are locked in from the first buzzer to the final buzzer. And it's beautiful. As far as going forward with Middleton out of there, I saw a stat this morning on Get Up. They go from like 83 and 30 something with everybody healthy, Milwaukee does, to like 25 and 22 without one of them, just missing one of the guys. They don't miss a lot of time, but when they do, it disrupts a lot. So
I think the numbers specifically without Middleton is bad. When they don't win often when he's going. Yeah.
And when you look at that, how do you not, if you're the Bulls, how do you not feel like, okay, like Gav said, this is the time that you strike. You know what I mean? You have to take advantage. And my favorite part about it, I think, is that they sounded the same after the loss as they did after the win. Like they just were even. Yeah. Next game.
That's a good point.
Next game. You heard DeMar talking about we're not going to miss those shots again. He was right. he was dead on, and then some. Caruso after this game.
That's something that, not to interrupt, but that's something that I've been worried about with the team is their mental fragility potentially. And, are they strong enough to maintain, getting knocked down and getting, the runs that are bound to happen in the playoffs? Sometimes you're going to be on top and feeling good, and that next quarter you could be feeling, lower than low because you're not getting any stops, and, you're turning the ball over and whatnot. Like, they've maintained themselves well throughout the ebbs and flows of each game, both game one and game two. And, they pretty much zone, like I say, they kept in the zone and done and focused in the way that we have, like you said, we haven't seen them in quite a while.
I think when Lonzo went down, they talk about what they missed with him. And everybody was talking about the defense, and I was like, where they really miss him is on offense. And not even just because of his ability, his individual ability, but it's settling everybody down when things are going awry and getting people the ball where they want it so they can get an easier shot. We've seen them get the ball in the same spots, but they're not getting it at the right moment in the right pocket, and it's coming off wrong. Vooch complained about it a while back. Like, what they didn't have was steadiness. They didn't, like we're just talking about. And so now, whatever the case is, I'm not even trying to dig too deep because I don't want to mess it up. Like, as long as they found it, maintain this, and they can play with anybody. Anything can happen, especially when you catch a team losing its second best player. Now, like Caruso said, they're going to come out, human nature is to come out feeling like you're cornered. So the Bulls got to be ready for a punch in the mouth when they from the opening tip on Friday. But they know what they can do against this team. They know that their process worked. Even in the loss, the process was working. They just couldn't hit the shots. So they've got to have ultimate confidence right now. And I don't know. You have to give them a chance. You have to.
Yeah, and like Gay mentioned, one of the better home teams in the league this year. So that gives it gives fans reason to feel, confident. But hopefully it's not another 15 season where Brian, he holds them off just enough. Hopefully Giannis don't do a second similar thing like that.
They all talk about Brown with the sunglasses come back from 3-1. I had flashbacks of him hunting down D Rose and D Rose is like miserable in closing moments. So yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, that was a tough one, but It's interesting too because that's the season when the Bulls and the Bucks last fought in the playoffs, and that was very early Giannis, very early Middleton,
first playoff run.
Yeah, and
that
so
was
they
their first playoff run together.
Yeah, so it was sort of. I was wondering if it was going to be a reverse of this series coming into it. Would it be a reverse of that situation? But the Bulls again have stood. They have a chance to make it much more competitive than that series was. If you remember, the Bulls won those first 3 games. They did give up the 2 games, like one on the last second shot, the 4 and 5, before they just wiped them off the map in Game 6 and the famous. Though they still hold it to it. They're still very proud of Dunleavy getting knocked into the stands by a young Giannis. When he was still a little wild. That was wild Giannis back then.
But, they just called him the alphabet.
Yeah, they still hold some pride to that. But yeah, it wasn't Bucks in 6. It was Bucks in 6, but they were getting knocked out. But a lot has changed then, and but we'll see how much by the end of this series. They are a champion team. You can't take that away from them. But this is not an ideal situation for them. And the Bulls, if they are the team that they thought they were back in December, they may have a chance to strike and do something memorable in this series. And as we take it over to the West Side for the remainder of the show. Tonight is a all Western Conference playoff slate. I got Memphis and Minnesota in front of me right now. Memphis was down this whole game, and they've just come back and take the lead recently. But Minnesota's still giving them a lot of fight. What are our thoughts on this Minnesota team? They took that game 1 very impressively. Couldn't maintain it in game 2. Memphis struck back, but we got a very competitive game 3 here. Was this a nightmare matchup for Memphis? Did y'all see that coming at all?
I don't think it was.
I thought it was. I thought not necessarily a nightmare matchup, but I thought it was a polar opposite matchup. You got a gritty team versus a skilled team, and I think that's where the intrigue for me was initially. And it's like you said, it's playing out a very competitive game 3 right now. So I didn't necessarily see them blowing out like they did in game 2, right? But I definitely saw this being more competitive just because it's really 2 differing styles, even though Memphis wants you to believe that they're more skilled than they kind of are, and Minnesota wants you to believe they're tougher than they actually are. So I love the battle of the 2 teams.
Yeah, it's a game. It is very fun. Like I admire the Memphis team, and I really like the Minnesota team. I hate that one of them going to have to be eliminated in this series, but I'm glad that they're both playing each other well and both showcasing their abilities right now. It's pretty good. It shows that we talked about this a little bit on Tuesday, that a changing of the guard is in effect here for a lot of new individuals who can be, who are establishing themselves in the playoffs this season. And, same can be said for some teams, and Memphis and Minnesota may be 2 of the best examples of that.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I mean, those are 2 of the top young and fun to watch teams in the Western Conference right now. I think Minnesota is still learning how to win as a group. I think Memphis is a group that's made strides. As we've seen, this is Ja's 3rd year. First 2 years, you get to the play-in game. Last year, you worked your way from the play-in round to the AFC. You win a playoff game, and even though you get bounced in 5 by Utah, you bounce back from that, and now you put yourself up among the upper echelon teams in the West. And that's why a lot of people were interested in this series to see how would Memphis respond, being one of the hunted teams, even though they're a young team in the West, against a team like Minnesota that's very young and upbeat, has a lot of young stars, and Cap being an established one, with Anthony Edwards being a rising one, and D'Lo, who's been a former All-Star as well. I mean, I thought that this was always going to be a very, very interesting series. I never saw it as like a trap series per se, but then again, in any given moment during the playoffs, anything can happen. So, yeah, I mean, Minnesota, they have a chance, but I just need to see more consistency from Minnesota defensively. That's always been my issue with Minnesota. When Minnesota's hitting threes, they're a tough team to beat. But when Minnesota's not, and their defense isn't where it needs to be, they tend to struggle.
And you say that just after Edwards misses a 3-pointer. So it's like, yeah, I mean, it's looking a little shaky for Minnesota right now. They're playing D though. That's nice strip there by Vanderbilt. But they're a tough team. They're a much tougher team than I think a lot of people expected them to be. But we'll see how the rest of this game closes out. But looking at the rest of the action that's going on right now, Dallas is up on Utah, and again that goes back to what we at the beginning of the show gave. Like, Dallas may be able to chill with Luka throughout the weekend here, so that could be a very nice benefit there for the Mavericks, going forward. Josh, man, what do you think about that situation for Dallas?
It's getting spooky for Utah. They tried to come out and downplay the severity of that loss in game 2. And was it game 2? Game 1. They kept the severity of the loss. and I think we all knew they were kind of, lying to themselves, because we knew what the reality was. Like, it shouldn't have been that close. You shouldn't be struggling with this team without Luka Doncic, and yet and still here you are. And so we know that there are rumors about Quinn Snyder, rumors about Rudy Gobert, rumors about Donovan Mitchell. I think this is a very tenuous situation for the Jazz, and we could see a very different looking Jazz team on the court next season.
Yeah, that's one of those things that everybody's getting on that now. It's like, man, I don't think this Utah team is working, man. We got to see have to do some dispersal there of talent. But yeah, it's interesting with Dallas, man. The way they've done a good job building themselves around this player who, again, John, I would love for you to go back and watch Tuesday's show and see how Gabe and y'all get a little emotional there, man, about Trey, man. But I want to do this right quick, again, because Josh, you've been following the Hawks for a while. Like, what do you think about the after effects? Putting in context of the trade that happened between Dallas and Atlanta a few years ago in the draft. They switched spots. Atlanta had Luka, Dallas had Trey, but a lot of people have questioned Trey more throughout his progress than they have Luka. There's more of a potential with Luka. Has been more of a potential anointing every year, in regards to like MVP and stuff like this, expecting him to carry Dallas to a certain level of success. Whereas with Trey, everything has been sort of a surprise in Atlanta. What are your thoughts on that in particular? And it was seen that Atlanta is definitely accepting of the trade and the way it's played out. They have their franchise guy. I pretty much said this on Tuesday. Like, both teams have their franchise guy. Nobody got fleeced in that trade. No, there wasn't one-sided at all. They just switched franchise players. And, Atlanta has their guy. They may have a little tougher road at the moment, but we don't know if either guy is going to bring either franchise to salvation. But as it is right now, they both had an impact on their cities and on their franchises. And, want to get your opinion from your point of view as a guy who's followed Atlanta and what's that meant for Atlanta and for Trey.
I agree with you that I don't think either team lost that trade. They both got their cornerstone that they were looking for. I will tell you that the fan base is not as settled on the debate even to this day. And as to your point about it's always something, trying to anoint somebody other than Trey, it's LaMelo Ball now. That's been the talk show topic for the last week or so, is that it's LaMelo. Even with what's going on, it's LaMelo. And even though I say that I don't think either team lost, if we really want to parse it out, one of these guys was two wins away from going to the conference or to the finals. The other guy hasn't been out of the first round. So if we want to talk about it, let's talk about it. Like, we can discuss how Luka's team is better this season. Yeah, they've improved that team a lot this year. The Hawks stood pat, which I thought was a mistake at the time, and we see that they've kind of paid for that, with injuries striking and inconsistency throughout the season. But one guy, and we talked about, was the center of the offense, just like Luka was in past seasons. Got his team 2 wins away against the eventual champs, no less. It wasn't just against the team that lost. He went up against the team with the champion and the finals MVP. Like, let's talk about it. If we really want to go there, we can go there. I think both teams won, but one guy has already done something that the other guy's can only dream about at this point.
That's right. And I wonder, like, it's interesting too to see the guys do it to a certain degree without him. Luka's gonna, I wonder if there's gonna be one of those things where he's gonna be like, well, maybe I should get out there before the end of this series, just so I could help clinch it off or something. But
winning's always better. That's
the smarter way to do it. But pride can be a trick.
Pride's the devil.
Yeah, so
he's gonna come back. He's gonna come back in this series. I have no doubt about that. But I agree with you, Josh. You spot on, and that's what me and Josh Hicks was talking about on part 1 of this series about how Trey got to the Eastern Conference Finals and how Luka in his first 2 playoff appearances has yet to get out of round 1. And you think about the way in which he lost last year, to be up 2-0 and go back to Dallas, with a 2-game lead and was playing with house money and lose both of those games. And then you have a chance to go back game 6 with a 3-2 lead. You don't close. And then you lose in 7 back-to-back times to the Clippers. And Trey got to the Eastern Conference Finals in his first playoff run. No home court advantage. Behind enemy lines. Not only standing toe-to-toe with Giannis, but taking down a guy like Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons in the Sixers. In their own backyard in Philadelphia. He didn't get enough credit for that, in my opinion. And I agree with you, Josh. Like, I thought, even in spite of Atlanta not doing anything to upgrade their roster significantly, I thought because of the run they went on last year that they could have possibly be top 5 in the Eastern Conference coming into this season. With the way that Trey was playing, as long as they had stayed healthy, I thought that they had a shot at that. Now, granted, they didn't live up to it, but then you think about the way in which he performed in the play-in. In Cleveland, Trey Young is basically like this generation's Reggie Miller. Behind enemy lines, I don't think it's too many young guys that's 25 or under that you wouldn't want to go and lead your team like he do.
And he ain't afraid of any moment.
Yeah, he's not afraid of the moment. He doesn't run from it or nothing.
They've talked about how the reason why he hasn't been as effective in this series because the Miami crowd is not paying him attention. He's off negativity.
Miami crowd don't get there till the third quarter.
Right. And by then it's already over. Like you said, he went into Philadelphia, went to Madison Square Garden. Right. Why did the crowd wave bye-bye? Had them. They still to this day are cussing him out at random moments. Like he's created enemies.
Oh, you could get an F Trey Young chant going in New York like that.
They got a going down at the Yankees game on opening day. Why in there? Like so. Yeah, man, I like Luka, but let's not play around. Like Trey is that dude. And honestly, if you want to keep doubting him, okay. I think the big thing is Atlanta needs to take a page out of Dallas's book and build out that roster a little bit more. They got some good. I love Bogdanovich off the bench. They just got to do a little bit more and get them some more pieces, and they'll be right where they need to be.
All right. Well, let's so we start to wrap up. We got the two remaining series we haven't touched on. In the West, of course, you got the, you got the Golden State Nuggets tonight, still to tip off in the moment, matter of minutes, but that's looking a little bit, geared for the Warriors. Of course, Jordan Poole standing out, and the young talent, the way that they've rebuilt themselves is just really impressive, and they're looking even. For various reasons, there was a reason to maybe think a little less of them as a Western Conference champion, potentially in the second half of the year. But now you got injury issues for Phoenix, and you got really no other team in the West looking as as certified as them, as well contained as them right now. What do you think about the outlook at the moment, given that Phoenix taking the loss, of course, in the last game against New Orleans? Are they in any potential danger now without Booker for the foreseeable future?
I think so.
Go ahead, yeah.
I think so. I think if DeAndre Ayton is not heavily involved in the game plan tomorrow night, and Chris Paul isn't seeking to find ways to get him going, it could get ugly. He didn't get enough touches in my mind in game 2. I know Booker was hot, but I think he may have only took about 6 or 7 shots in game 2, DeAndre Ayton. So they got to get him involved. And I think that they still have more depth all around than the Pelicans do. But anytime you remove a guy that's a walking 20-25 night in, night out from your lineup, as Phoenix has been all year long, that's going to be tough. I think they definitely got to find a way to salvage a split in New Orleans just to go back home in game 5 with some momentum. But one thing about Phoenix, when you got Chris Paul, the conductor that he is, finding guys, and Jay Crowder hitting big-time shots, and Mikal Bridges, then they can have a chance. But one thing you got to think about, Willie Green was a former Suns assistant last year. He knows that team inside and out. That's not the best matchup to have when you lose one of your top guys. And you got a guy on the opposite end who knows your personnel and has coached your personnel and has played with some of your personnel. So that's something to think about. And one thing about the Pelicans, like Brandon Ingram and CJ, they're not ducking and running from nobody either. Brandon Ingram showed that in the fourth quarter, and Larry Nance has been impressive on the glass. Things gotta come with it in game 3, and they gotta punch him in the mouth from the beginning of the opening tip in the first quarter tomorrow night. They gotta come with it.
Yeah, I totally agree. No, this is Phoenix is probably still the better team, but losing a guy like Booker is a blow more to your morale, if not to your on the court product. So New Orleans is if they come out and they feel like they can seize this moment, yeah, they definitely can punch him in the mouth. And CJ is a guy who's hit big shots in the past. Brandon Ingram is a guy who's got all the talent in the world. If it's finally clicked for him, then all right there. Without having Booker out there, like you said, he had 30 at halftime. Like he was sizzling them dudes. Like it wasn't even close. And without him, man, that's a big blow. That's a lot you're trying to disperse amongst guys who aren't equipped to do it. Now it's not gonna be one guy, but if you can't get it from one guy, that weakens a lot of other areas as well. So it's not as big of a blow as it would be to some teams because Phoenix, like you said, is deep, but this is still a blow nonetheless.
Yeah. Things closing up in Minnesota, Memphis. Like pretty much, I'll play Minnesota the rest of the way in the fourth quarter. They win 104-95, so they're leading the series now for the first time, 2-1. Yeah. I would think, you think maybe things are stabilizing there, and them, like say them being the second seed, you got. Them bound to play the 3-6 winner in the next round. And, we talk, like I said, Golden State looking like a strong number 3 right now. But, are we expecting just them to run the rest of the way through? Could we see a sweep of them against Denver or what? Gabe, you say, yeah?
Yeah, I think that series a wrap.
I
think that series a wrap. I watched the first 2 games, and I kid you not, like after the first 6 minutes of the fourth quarter, I'm typically just switching. I'm paying attention to the post game talk because it's Denver, man. Without Murray and Porter, they don't have enough. And Jokic, man, is coming out of these games, and they putting him to work in the pick and roll, and they making him work like he gassed. He tired.
It's not just the pick and roll either. It's the small ball. That lineup is working him out. My man,
they headhunting. It's like they straight up headhunting him, man. Like and they going to work. And Golden State, man, it's just scary. Like anytime you able to just bring a Steph Curry off your bench as a 6-man, and he's willingly accepting this role.
That's
like
why
he's not complaining, he's not fussing about it, and he putting up 30. It's Golden State is for a 3 seed, man. They getting hot at the right time. They got off to a hot start, kind of had a little rough stretch with the injuries and whatnot, but now, man, yeah, I don't think Denver stands much of a chance. They probably got one more good game left. They like tonight, I can see them having a little run early. If Monty Morris, can continue to play the way he did in game 2 early, but I still don't think that's gonna be enough. Jokic put up all enough. I still don't think it's gonna be enough. I think Golden State has that in the sweep. This Memphis-Minnesota series, I still think it's a lot of more intriguing basketball left in that one. Even though Memphis is up 2-1, and that was a big win tonight for Memphis on the road. They've proven that they deserve to be among the upper echelon teams in the West. But Minnesota gonna come back a little bit harder. But that Golden State series, man, I think that's a wrap.
But given that belief, if you're Memphis, are you like? Well, I guess you don't want to take your focus off of the opponent, definitely. But you may not want it to go 6 or 7 if you can help it. Especially if Golden State is breezing like they are,
Yeah, you already got some PTSD from the last time y'all met up, so you don't want to have to go through that again. It takes a lot out of you. If nothing else, going up against that Warriors team is going to drain you going forward. Yeah. And so even if you've beaten them, you know what it takes physically. And while we just talked about, Memphis is a grittier team than they are the skill. They can shoot you out the gym too every now and again, but they don't do it like Golden State. So like it's just a different sort of style that even that you see from most teams in the playoffs. Most teams are trying to get you in the half court and slow you down. Golden State is making you run still. They're still out here getting in transition. They're still finding wide open 3-point shooters off of movement, off the ball. And it's the regular season still in the postseason when things are supposed to slow down. They just said no. Go. I totally agree. They look like not a juggernaut, because we haven't seen them win anything substantial yet. But man, they got the makings.
Yeah. Tonight will be key. So we'll see if Denver has any sort of response in them. They got to get going right away if they want to have any impact on that series. But that was. Guys, I really appreciate that, man. That was a good, run across the league and everything. I'm able to get some more good stuff in this week with another Josh joining me and Gabe. But we gonna start to wrap up. I want to touch on another interesting line of stories that are coming out, not through the college game, but affecting to the pro game before we sign off. You got a number of big time players in the college game, making their decisions now in regards to, going, staying in school or committing, getting an agent and committing to go into the draft and everything. And I think 3 players. It was originally 2 players who I was thinking about, but today another player made their decision in Chet Holmgren, and that made a lot of news because. He's the pivotal number 1 for a lot of people in the draft coming up. But the 2 players who I had noted before today was, Illinois' Kofi Coburn. I watched wrestling too. But, Kofi Coburn, who was, previously had dipped his toe in the NBA decision, but it's going full in now. And this year, after, sort of so-so year compared to the one prior that he had when he's playing with Ayo Dosunmu. But, he's going ahead. And surprisingly, the player, Oscar Tshiebwe, I'll get that right, from Kentucky. The Wooden Award was the first Wooden Award winner to stay in school since Tyler Hansborough, which is wild. I hope he can avoid any other comparisons to Hansborough besides that. But he's staying at Kentucky. So I don't know, amongst those 3 stories in particular, any of those sort of catch y'all? Any of those are a particular interest to y'all? Like I said, I'm an Illinois guy. I follow the program and everything. I think that Kofi is making the right decision, even though you can argue that he may need some skill, that he may need some more refinement. But I don't know if he's going to get any better at Champaign. And he may be salting away more money if he exposed himself on that level for another year. That's my opinion. Like I said, the story with the Kentucky kids, of course, is obvious there. But Holmgren knows a lot of people have been anticipating Holmgren, and for him to be the number one pick, I definitely want to see how that plays out, and if there's going to be any other options, anybody else who sort of rivals him going into the draft and everything. But I'll leave the floor to y'all right quick.
I think Paolo is big.
Yes, he's committed for the draft. Yeah.
I think he's the prohibitive number one, but I know you will see a lot of debates in the coming weeks between him and Chet having that top spot. Chet, it was a guy that I expected to come out. So when I saw that, I was kind of like, okay, no big news there. But Oscar, to me, staying is a big deal because, like you said, the first Wooden Award winner since Hansbrough to stay. And Hansbrough, if I'm not mistaken, graduated out of North Carolina in 2009. So that's been a long time, to have a guy that is the reigning Wooden Player of the Year college basketball returning. And I kind of expected that because he has big NIL deals on the table. And if you look at a lot of the mock draft boards, he's really not among the top players. In a lot of draft boards, he's going undrafted. So I can understand why he would want to stay. Kofi, on the other hand, I think it's time. Granted the NIL deals, he could have really raked in a lot of big-time profit at the U of I. He could have put himself in a position to where maybe he could have surpassed Deion Thomas as the all-time leading scorer of the program.
Yeah.
But when you think about the body of work that he had in Champaign, it was really not too much left to do. He helped resurrect the Illini program and gave them, some solid years of success that they really have not had since the Bill Self and Bruce Weber era. Him and Trent Frazier, what they were able to do there. And yeah, it's time to go to the next level and see what he's made of. And hopefully you just hope that he improves upon his skill set and expands upon his game so that maybe one day he can have an opportunity to be a contributing role player, if not potentially maybe emerge into becoming a top option on the NBA team at the 5 spot. But he has his work ahead of him, I think. And I think the combine will be a great opportunity for him to show scouts what he can do on and off the floor.
And I think too, Illinois they probably wasn't pushing him out the door, but I think they're willing to see what they can do without him and sort of reform that roster that they got. They got some kids coming in, some real talented kids coming in, but to have more of an open flow offense, maybe more of an up-tempo offense they could stand to have without Kofi now in the mix going forward. So, yeah, Josh, you got any thoughts on those guys?
I agree with the Kofi point in that his problem, that the reason why he's no longer in Illinois is going to be his problem getting on the floor in the NBA unless he develops some more skill. But like you said, it wasn't going to come down in Champaign. He has to go. Even the path of the G League is not what it used to be. It's not the wasteland, the land of the forgotten that it once was. Now you go in there, you can develop and really become a solid contributor. Chet interests me because his body type. And I know we said the same thing about KD, and KD came and did what he did, but I just want to see what it's like to be that wiry. He's a thin guy. He's got a very thin frame and he's long. So they're going to be able to get into him, and leverage is going to be really big for him. So I want to see how well he can actually effectively use that size once he gets into the NBA, where guys are strong enough and they got enough length to bother it. They don't stop it, but they can disrupt his movements. Paolo to me is the number one. He's got the NBA body, the skill set, and the temperament, I think, to want to be that guy. And so that would be my thing. I would probably go Paolo, Chet, and then fill out the rest after that. But like you said, Gabe, I understand there's gonna be pushing the Chet because he's a freak. Like, the kid is really crazily built, and the numbers that he puts up are insane. And so, I mean, it's gonna be a toss up. It's really gonna be a toss up. But I would probably go Paolo first too.
And Gabe, I guess one more thing before we wrap up. Now, one pick is designed to go to Houston at the moment. If it's Houston making that pick, what would who would you rather have, and who would you think they would lean more towards? Because I know you stay in tune with Houston.
I'll be honest, I stay in tune with them, and I've watched them off and on since the Harden era has concluded. But based on what I've been hearing, I would expect for Ralph Stone and his front office staff to go with Paolo. I know Paolo is real close with Jalen Green. Both of those guys are West Coast guys. And with Ralph Stone having a background, being from out on the West Coast part of the country and bringing in a lot of West Coast talent to Houston, which has been a big thing since the Harden era, with Jalen Green being a Fresno guy, Kevin Porter coming out of Seattle. I would think that Houston would go either Paolo or Chet with the number one pick. But if they had to go between one or the other, I think they would go with Paolo because they need a wing. And Houston has their big man already with Alperen Sengun, a tremendous young player out of Turkey, who I think once they continue to give him more minutes in the league, you're going to start seeing a lot of people comparing him to Jokic with his skill set, and his ability to pass the ball and shoot and set screens at a high level and initiate the offense a little bit, be it out the post or even, handling the ball a little bit. So I think with the Rockets having their star center of the future in Sengun, and you have KPJ and Jalen Green in your backcourt, I'm thinking that they're going to go with Paolo Banchero as their small forward, because that's really the only true missing piece. And that'll give them a front court piece that they can, have a core foursome to build around.
That does look kind of promising there. Yeah, definitely. All right. So yeah, that's gonna be it for now with this episode of Runnin with WARR. Again, really appreciate you guys stopping by and building with me on this Thursday. Josh, man, great to have you on for the first time, and we definitely gonna look to have you back on the show sooner than later. Let everybody know how to keep up with what you're doing and where to look for your work.
Man, first of all, thank you again for having me. I had a blast. You guys are great. And would love to come back anytime. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Buck. I share everything there. If you're looking for individual stuff, heavy.com for the Bull stuff, Soaring Down South for the Hawk stuff, and then Last Word on Pro Football for the Bear stuff. So we touching everything.
Definitely. And Gabe, man, I know you guys need a plug, man, but feel free to of course, the feel free to let everybody know the tag and everything.
Oh, yes, sir. Anytime. What Gabe said on Twitter, I'm on Facebook in my name. You can find me on there. Anything that I have going on, I definitely post through there. Definitely always a pleasure to be on, Cal, talking hoops with you guys on Running. Definitely looking forward to what's going down in the playoffs. As we got a lot of basketball left over these next month and a half or so.
Yeah. We'll be back on early next week. Just probably Monday or Tuesday, one of those days at least. And I think as long as the Bulls are in action, I'll try to do 2 shows a week. So at least that long. We'll see about keeping up this 2 show a week schedule. So we'll get Drew and all our guys on pretty soon. Reacting to what's going on in the playoffs. And like I said, Golden State and Denver going at it right now. Just started out in Denver. Dallas is up on Utah at half. So we'll let all y'all enjoy the rest of the evening in hoops. But this is the Running with WARR show. Keep up with us, WARR Media at WARR Media on all platforms. WARR on Anchor is our page for our podcast distribution on Anchor.fm. We distribute to all major platform podcast platforms. So just search WARR on Anchor and you'll be able to follow us. So WARR Media on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube now, just click that button that says subscribe and you'll get notices whenever we plan to go live in the future. We got a lot of great shows going right now. At Bat, our baseball podcast is We just started this year. Really check that out. Really nice addition to our lineup. Shout out to Miles Porter and Sal Rodriguez doing that. We got, of course, Josh didn't join us guy Josh Hicks didn't join us tonight. We got Josh Buckhalter here, but Josh Hicks didn't join us tonight. But he put out a nice edition of In the Scope with Josh Hicks with Ryan Severini from Channel 7 News here in Chicago. So that's one you will want to check out as well. And of course, our writing on Substack War Ready. Josh has a piece up with his predictions for the playoffs. Drew got a nice piece up, and Drew also is like I said, we getting our guys on all sorts of TV and stuff. Drew is he did a segment with Larry Hardy from Channel 9 today, man. So you watch out for that, man. Like I said, man, you want to get on what we doing, man, because the price of the brick is not going to be low for too much longer, man. So just keep your ear to the streets because we working out here. So that's it for me, Kyle Means. Means Matters. You want to follow me on Twitter? Feel free. I don't care if you do or don't, but if you want to, that's where I am. And that's it for now. Peace and blessings, y'all. Keep peaceful out there. Peace in the Middle East. Peace in Ukraine. Peace everywhere. And in the meantime, keep bouncing.